background information. In November of 2021, you were employed by the ATF, and you also worked on was it a task force? Did I understand that correctly?
So at the time of the shooting, I wasn't on the task force yet. I was working on cases in Pontiac that which morphed into, led into the creation of that task force.
In connection with this case, you reviewed a significant amount of information and data in the investigations related to the Oxford High School shooting.
Yes.
And that would be specific to Mr. Crumbley, some specific to Mrs. Crumbley, and some specific to their son.
Yes.
On September 25th of 2021, you testified that that James and his son went to a gun range in Clarkston.
September 25th, yes.
That they rented a 9mm handgun, if you recall, and I can pull the exhibit up if you'd like.
No, that's correct.
Okay. That they purchased 2 boxes of 9mm ammunition.
I believe that's the correct quantity, yes.
If you recall, the price of those boxes was $29.99 each.
I don't recall, but that wouldn't surprise me.
Okay. That sounds about right for a box of 9mm ammunition.
Yes.
There was also .22 caliber ammunition that was purchased.
Yes.
They fired a .22 caliber pistol.
I believe the video we had, yes.
And that was the Caltech that's owned by James Crumbley?
I believe that is the firearm that's depicted, yes.
Okay. And you also learned that they also fired a 9mm pistol.
Yes.
Which is the one that they rented.
Correct.
That was the HK.
Yes.
In October 3rd of 2021, they went to the gun range again, they being James Crumbley and his son.
Yes.
They purchased .22 caliber ammunition.
I don't recall the exact receipt for that day, but that sounds correct for that day, yes.
And in October of 2021, to your knowledge, based on your knowledge of the investigation, there were 2 pistols in the home, and that was there were BB guns as well. I'm
Sure.
not referring to those.
Sure.
There were 2 pistols. There was the Derringer, which you've been shown, and the Caltech.
Correct.
Okay. Those are both .22 caliber handguns.
Yes.
November 26th of 2021 is when the Sig Sauer 9mm was purchased.
Yes.
And that was done so by James Crumbley.
Yes.
And if you recall from the receipt, there was, it was a handwritten receipt.
Yes, the receipt was handwritten, yes.
And the receipt had the firearm listed,
Yes.
the serial number of the firearm,
Correct.
prices, and things of that nature.
Yep.
Okay. On November 27th of 2021, James Crumbley's wife, Jennifer, took their son to the gun range.
I'm sorry, what date was that again?
November 27th of 2021.
Correct.
So that was the day after the 9mm was purchased.
Yes.
They purchased 2 boxes of Patriot Defense 9mm ammunition.
Yes.
Based on your investigation, you learned that they fired 1 full box of ammunition, or at least you believe that that occurred.
That's correct.
You recall that each box was approximately $23.99.
Yes.
That they left with 1 box of 50 rounds of ammunition.
Correct.
I'm going to get back to, you compared the handgun on the math assignment and also the handgun in the home. I'm going to get back to that in just a minute, but I do want to talk about keeping a handgun safe in a home. You would agree that there are a variety of ways to keep a handgun safe in a home, and I'm going to give you some examples. One would be to store it in a safe.
I would say that's one way to. Are you saying, when you said keeping a firearm safe, what does that mean exactly?
Sure. Well, just that. Keeping it safely stored, keeping it safe in the home.
Safe. I'm not trying to play a game. I'm just trying. So you're saying like keeping it safe from access or from a person? Like I'm trying to understand.
Sure. Safe from others, safe from accidents, safe from accidental discharge,
Sure.
safe from mishandling, safe from ...
Sure. That's one way I think you could keep a firearm securely stored inside of a home.
You can store it in a locking gun case. We saw that the cases that were on the table, they had holes where you could put a lock in them.
Yes, that's
That's
correct.
another way.
Yes.
You could store it in the small safe. I guess there's a couple different styles of safes. There's the little safe that you showed us earlier, and then there's other bigger safes, correct?
Yeah, there's a variety of gun safes out there, yes.
You could use a cable lock.
Yes.
You could use a trigger lock, which goes in the trigger.
Yes.
You could store the firearm unloaded. Obviously, an unloaded firearm is not inherently dangerous, correct?
I don't want to speculate on whether that would be a safe way to secure a firearm because you don't know, whether knowing all the ins and outs of whether someone else has ammunition or magazines or things like that, I I can't answer that question.
Sure. I guess my question is actually a lot more simple. I'm not asking you to speculate on anything.
Sure.
Simply having an unloaded firearm, is an unloaded firearm in itself dangerous? Or does it become dangerous when you put ammunition in it?
I would say that the answer to that question really depends on the proficiency with firearms of people in the home. If you have ammunition stored separately and it's just the firearm by itself, if someone clearly knows how to load a magazine and insert it, it's no longer stored safely secured, I would think.
My question is a little bit different, though. It's not necessarily talking about, and we can get to the other stuff too. I'm not asking you to avoid that.
I'm really just trying to answer your question. I'm trying to understand what you're trying to ask.
Sure.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to ask is an unloaded firearm, in and of itself, no ammunition in it, no magazine in it, is that itself unsafe?
Again, I don't know what else. Not knowing what else is in the home, I can't answer that question.
Okay. You would agree that keeping a handgun safe depends on a variety of circumstances. And you talked about some of those, not knowing if there's ammunition in the home, right?
Yes, are you talking now again about the same line of it being stored just by itself?
Correct.
I mean, yeah, there's so many factors that would go into whether that would be a secure way to store a firearm, yes.
Where it's stored could also be dependent upon the age of the people in the home.
I think that's one relevant factor, yes.
The people who live in the home, their knowledge of firearms. And I think you mentioned proficiency, like whether or not somebody could load a magazine.
Right. I think we're getting into an area that's kind of, I don't know how to answer that question. I'm just really trying my best here. I don't know how to answer that question. There's just too many variables. Yes. There are a number of variables that come into play when considering how to store a firearm, yes.
One of the ways that we just discussed was a cable lock. Cable locks can be removed in more than one way, correct? It can be removed by using a key and unlocking the cable lock.
Yes, that's the way to unlock the cable lock, yes.
And I think that one of our witnesses previously also testified that you can also cut off a cable lock.
Yes, I'm aware that there are tools you can use to defeat a cable lock, yes.
As for the youth handgun safety pamphlet that the prosecutor showed you, you're aware of federal law, which that ATF handgun safety pamphlet is about federal law, correct?
Yes.
It's not about Michigan laws.
Correct. I believe it references state and local ordinances at one point, but generally speaking, yes, it's a federal law.
Okay. And you're aware that it is legal under federal law for a minor to possess a handgun in certain circumstances?
Yes, that's correct.
That includes going to a shooting range?
So we have to be careful about how we're using the words in that sentence. So there's five specified things in particular about what minors can do alone with firearms with written consent from their parents. It would be hunting, ranching, employment, target practice, and hunting, I believe. But there's specific things you have to do with as far as if they're doing it alone with written consent, the consent has to be on them. There's a variety of things in the actual statute itself. I can't recall all of them off my head, but if I'd have to love a little more information to know that was okay.
Sure. And we don't have any evidence, and we haven't looked at any evidence during your testimony, and you've been sitting in court for all the witnesses, correct?
That's correct, yes.
There's been no evidence presented by Mr. Wagrowski or any other witness to show that Mr. Crumbley's son went to the range by himself?
No, not that I've discovered in this case, no.
So we're talking about going to a shooting range with a parent. That itself is not illegal under federal law.
No.
Learning firearm safety. A minor can handle a firearm while learning firearm safety. Again, assuming they're with a parent.
Right. There's only certain things that are covered by federal law that federal law even touches upon, and it's the transfer of a handgun to a minor. It's not even contemplating those scenarios you're discussing. So there is not a federal law that says a parent can't show their child firearm safety. No.
And during your involvement in this case, you found no evidence that James Crumbley was aware that his son had obtained unsupervised access to any of the firearms in his house.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. During your involvement in this case, you found no evidence that James Crumbley was aware that his son had obtained access to the firearms in his home.
I don't recall him ever having the videos of his son playing with the firearm or anything like that, just the fact that he was present during the time.